Hello, Internet! I'm HamsterBomb.
And I'm Zach.
And this is HITBOX, the gaming podcast where... What do we do?
We take cardboard boxes.
Take cardboard boxes.
We assemble them.
Assemble them.
And we hit them.
And we hit them.
Yes.
Yeah, Oh, I get it! That makes sense. I thought we hid inside of them. And we snuck around all sneaky-like.
Colonel.
Yeah.
I'm trying to sneak around.
No, well, I guess we sort of talk about Vigi games. I don't know if any other Vigi games where you smack boxes. Tetris, you smack box, sort of.
No, those Sokobon games where you push the boxes into place. Those puzzle games. Yeah, there you go.
We'll get in any sort of tangent other than actually talk about what we're supposed to be talking about for the episode. So this time, truth be told, this was kind of like a last-second episode we had to put together because Kim and I were supposed to record something, and that fell through because we have problems going on, and then this guy's knee is all busted up again.
Yeah, I'm gonna need a knee replacement more than likely. So.
Yay! So he's slowly turning into a bionic commando.
I was gonna say a cyberpunk character, but that works too.
Yeah, I'm looking a little farther back, but just a little. Well, actually, not really. No, not really.
No, because the RPG that 2077 is based on came out in '88. Mm-hmm. So there you go.
So never. That's very close.
Very close.
I'd have to go back and check HITBOX exactly when Bionic Commando came out. But
I don't
anyway,
remember.
that is neither here nor there. We're not talking about that today. Instead, what we wanted to do was an episode that I have had simmering in my head for a while. It's just a happy place kind of idea.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about most memorable boss fights.
Yes, and I think when we're talking about most memorable to us.
Well,
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not like the whole top 10 most memorable boss battles.
Yeah, we're not IGN. We're not doing this based on polls or anything. This is just us looking at the list of games that we've played, like, oh, I loved this, or I remember that, like, so that kind of stuff. Because initially we wrote this as best boss fights, and we changed it about halfway through when we were coming up with the list, because this is more of stuff that sticks with you.
Yeah, because for me, a memorable boss battle is kind of like, for me, just like that convergence where gameplay, story, and just like the setting and stuff just kind of come together and make something to me that just, like you said, sticks in my head all these years later.
Yes, and we'll get to it when we get to our examples. We came up with 10 each to talk about, so hopefully we'll be on target today. We're not playing something at the time, so if you're only listening to us, hopefully we'll actually be able to stay on topic today and not suddenly go, oh, whoa, and you have no idea what we're reacting to. Anyway, I totally agree. I think some of the best boss fights are the ones where it takes everything you have learned with the gameplay and meshes it in a unique, interesting way.
Yep.
And you have to, once, like, fulfill that in terms of, like, reaction and doing it live while you're playing the game. But also, the story, like you said, is making some other interesting reason for why you have to do all those things at the same time. And it's usually that surprise with the interesting, like, brain puzzle that you're trying to figure out at the same time.
Yes.
That's what makes them really engaging, I think. So, just to throw off, these were in no particular order.
No.
But when we did come up with them in order, of course, some of our favorite games we listed first, so just to throw us off, we're going to read our own lists that are in no particular order backwards, just so that we read, like, the other stuff.
Hey, it's just like some of those boss battles. Everything is all topsy-turvy
everything's topsy-turvy and everything else. So I guess I'll go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
The first one, which is weird, I actually just last night was thinking about my list and erased one of them because I was like, no, I want to talk about Great Joggy.
Great Joggy.
From Monster Hunter Tri. The Monster Hunter people are like, what the heck are you talking about? Of all monsters, why'd you pick Great Joggy? I will tell you.
Okay, tell me.
I think this is probably the most important boss fight if you consider a Monster Hunter fight when you go on with a large monster, a boss fight. Because,
they are.
The game is giving you key quests that you must clear in order to progress the main story and keep going. So it's really the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's still armor checks and skill checks.
Exactly, yeah. And so the Great Joggy is the first one that is your first large monster at the time. And he's really just a replacement for the first game's Velocidrome. A raptor-like T-Rex-looking thing that has no elements, nothing like that. It's really just a big raptor, and you gotta learn how to fight it, learn its moves, and dodge and kill it. Right? And that's basically the gist of the tutorial. But he is so much more than that.
Okay.
So when you start the game, you are initially hoping you're just going to hunt monsters, but they send you out to go look for mushrooms and get the lay of the land of the place first. Fight the little things. You start fighting Joggies and Joggiyas, which are the small raptors that go down in a few hits. And sure, they might come in small groups, but that's really the gist of it, and you have fought these before. They're not that hard. Then you suddenly go to fight the Great Joggi, and this thing, as opposed to the original iterations, it is also taking everything that you have learned. Here it's coming back again, with how the Joggies function, and it has unique calls that it can send commands to the herd. Because this is the apex, the alpha of the group. So this thing can start suddenly going like, ooh, 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 and the other Joggies will, that means I'm calling more. So you can learn their calls, and if you understand what it's doing, you can figure out, like, okay, I thinned the herd too much, that makes him call more, so that's kind of useless. But if I don't, it might give out, like, a big howl, which means swarm the hunter.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, that's right, yeah, because I remember when you guys told me to give this game a try, and I first came up against this thing, it's like, what's it do? Why is a giant air sac filling? Oh, no, there's a ton more.
Yeah, it's calling more,
yeah.
it's sending them to swarm at you, because it really does feel like you're dealing with actual pack mentality.
Right.
Yeah, it's taking these smaller creatures that you already are familiar with, for sure, but they are doing something totally different you were not expecting.
Yep.
And it's all by the command of the big thing you are intending to focus on, because you were basically instructed up to this point, focus on one target, smack it till it dies. Even if you played the first two Monster Hunter games, but Great Joggi is kind of turning even that on its head, saying the ecology is also important. Learn the lay of the land, learn how these creatures communicate and interact with each other. Even its next monster that you fight after that, the Kirapeko, calls other monsters to the fight to try and throw you off. So that one in particular, I think the jump from 2 to 3 was really focusing on that, and Great Joggi does an excellent job with trying to throw you off. And I think it's a really great boss fight, underrated. Because you can go back later, of course, like you said, go with better equipment. You could, I think people have one-shot Great Joggies just out of, the sake of saying they could do it.
I'll show you.
Yeah, but that's not the point. The only reason you would want to do that is because that first fight actually gave you trouble, and you don't want to admit it.
Right.
It gave me trouble, too.
It did,
yeah. It makes you learn, like, oh, shoot, I can't just pick whatever weapon I want. You've got to learn how they, like, some of them will sweep around, and that hits more of the little Joggies instead of one that goes forward. So you have to learn, like, what kind of attacks do I need to do? What kind of weapons should I choose for the challenge ahead, which is something you've never had to do up to that point. Yeah, so what's your first one?
The first one I have, let's see here, would be the Swordmaster from The Secret of Monkey Island.
Yes.
Yes, so...
It's such a great game.
It really is. So it's a point-and-click adventure game. You play as Guybrush Threepwood, and you're trying to become the best pirate. So one of the things...
For no reason, really.
No, he just wants to be a pirate.
He just wants to.
Because pirates are cool.
He really does seem like just like this Joe Schmo who just like got sick of farming.
I think so,
walked into town like, I'm going to be a pirate.
Yeah, so it's like...
It's a goofy, funny game.
Yeah, so in order to become a pirate, you actually have to pass these 3 trials the council sets to you. And eventually it all culminates in this eventual encounter with someone known as the Swordmaster. And one of the things that the game teaches you is that if ever you get into a sword fight with a pirate, you have to also engage in a battle of wits.
Right. The sword fighting is completely secondary and just kind of happens on screen. Remember, this is a point-and-click adventure game.
Right. This is more about puzzle solving.
Right. And the sword fighting is almost like gaining ground, like a reverse tug-of-war. And you're, like you said, you're actually, like, throwing insults at each other.
Yeah, like, it's not so much about the sword fight, it's more about a battle of wits and how much you're demoralizing your opponent.
And how many insults and comebacks you have learned.
Correct. So the whole point of the later section of the first act is you just going around the island and just picking fights with random pirates, gathering up insults and comebacks, and that way you start piecing together, okay, when someone says, I heard your mother was a cow milker, you know to come back with something like, yeah, well, blah, 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 your dad, fights bulls or some stupid
I forget what it is. Something, you're a farmer. I don't remember what, but they're all clever and they're all funny.
Yeah,
we just don't have them in front of us right now. But
no, and like we said, this is a last minute video too, so I can't think. But so eventually you gather up all the insults and all the comebacks, and you think, okay, I could take on the Swordmaster. Then you go into the middle of the island, you find her, And then she starts throwing out these insults you haven't heard yet.
Nothing you've heard before. And even if
Right.
you keep fighting her and losing, which is how you gain insults out in the wild, I guess you could say.
Yes.
You do not gain these insults. And there's a reason for that. Because you can't throw them back at her. You need to figure out what the comeback is.
Right, because it's a word puzzle. It's all a play on words. So if she says something that makes you think, wait a minute, why does this sound similar, or what can I use in my arsenal to come back with? You know,
It repurposes all of the comebacks. And
Yes.
if you're playing the special edition of this, which is all voice acted,
Yeah.
he will actually say the comebacks differently
yes,
when he does it with the Swordmaster. And another thing that's really funny, if you're fighting another pirate and you throw the wrong comeback at them,
Yep.
he'll say it kind of unsure of himself,
Yes.
knowing that it's not the right one, so you can kind of hear that. But when you're fighting the Swordmaster, he will say the correct thing in another new twist, so you can hear how it was supposed to be, have this double purpose
Right,
of
exactly.
coming back at her insult.
And so, I mean, that just really sticks out to me. Everyone always who I've heard talk about this game talks about the sword fighting in this game and how just unique it is, even just in any game I can think of, really.
Yeah, I'm thinking of some of the insults now off the top of my head, like, I heard you were a contemptible sneak.
Yes.
Ah, but nobody's ever heard of you at all.
Yeah.
And you gotta, like, use those comebacks in interesting ways. So you gotta
Yes.
think of, like, exactly what that means and how you could spin it around at somebody else. It's a true understanding of the wordplay.
Yep.
And not just, like, if this, then that. Because that's really
Yes.
how the game teaches you up to that point. And the Swordmaster is a big subversion, which
Yes.
is really clever. The biggest, honestly, the only thing I'm really disappointed with in that game is that it ends after that. There's no more sword fighting after this
Not
point.
really, because I don't think you even really sword fight any of LeChuck's men,
I
or
don't
even
think you
LeChuck
do.
himself. I mean, you do get into a battle of wits later, but it's not like...
Yeah, that's kind of different. It's
Yeah.
that's more of like a puzzle. So I mean, it turns back into it did its thing.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's just so good. It makes you wish there was more.
What about you? What's your next one?
So you actually were the one who pulled up this game. You mentioned Hollow Knight when we were
Yes.
talking about these, and I was immediately like, oh my gosh, Mantis Lords. If there's any turning point in Hollow Knight that makes me just keenly remember, it is the Mantis Lords. Up to that point, you can probably mosey your way through it. Hornet might have
Yeah.
given you trouble, but not much.
Yeah, like you got the False Knight and the Grub Mother, and they're fine.
Yeah, they're not.
They're
They're really not too bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're tutorial. I don't want to say easy, but comparative to the rest of the game, they're pretty easy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and by the time you get to the Mantis Lords, now you have, one, gone deeper into a nest of those mantises, that the regular ones that are kind of harder to deal with, and then you finally get to these guys, and even just getting down to them is kind of a trek.
Yes.
It's,
oh gosh.
it's
yeah.
not that easy to even get to them, because you really have to know and understand how to deal with the mantises. And then you get to these 3 different thrones in this huge room, basically trying to get an audience with these mantises for no other reason than they're in your way,
Yep.
as you do in a Metroidvania.
Oh yeah.
One of them jumps out of the background and basically starts challenging you to this duel, and it's like a much harder version of all those enemies, as most boss fights would be at that point.
Yeah.
You manage to defeat it. The other 2 at the same time get up and now enter the ring.
Yes.
And you're now dealing with both. And all of a sudden, if you were just waiting for opportunities to strike and smack and things, you're probably going to get your butt handed to you here.
I did, yeah.
I did as well. I did it on camera too. But nowadays, like for instance, like once you know how this boss fight goes, I actually played a live stream a year or so ago, just like messing around with Steel Soul mode,
Yeah.
where if you die once, the whole game's over.
Oh right.
Yeah, and for one stream, I had already gotten to the Mantis Lords, and I was like, all right, this is gonna be the end of it. But then I like really realized, like, wow, this fight is a dance.
It really is.
It's
yes.
It has nothing to do with, like, you know, being a brute, hiding and like poking when you need to. It's understanding the flow of how they move. It's artful. It almost like goes with their music.
It does.
Yeah, and you need to like be in that rhythm and that flow, and you will never get hit.
No, exactly, and especially like once you get their patterns memorized, you can look for better opportunities to try to attack.
Yeah.
It teaches you too that pogoing off of the enemies is a viable strategy, which I didn't know was a thing at
You
that
practically
point.
have to do it
Yeah.
there at some of the points. Yeah, if you want to get optimum damage in. And boy, when that fight goes well, it feels so good.
Yes, and especially once you finally win, and then they all stand up and they bow to you and let you pass. That's just so gratifying. Like, like, that's right, you let me through, and then you get scared about where you go to.
Yeah, you just walked into Deep Nest.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, you kind of feel like you've earned that point, and also it's a great tutorial boss for teaching you to, like, the game isn't going to, like, an RPG or a regular Castlevania, if we're talking about the RPG half.
Yeah.
It's not just going to make you stronger by giving you higher stats as the game goes on.
Correct.
You need to learn how to artfully use what you have.
Yeah, it's like
at your disposal.
It's like one of those, not reverse Metroidvanias, but it's one of those games where the tools to you are available from the start, for the most part.
Like Dark Souls.
Yes, but you just have to learn how to use them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that, like you said, the Mantis Lords do an amazing job with that.
Yeah, there's other bosses that, like, are really memorable in that game, but that's, I think, the big turning point. That, like, you either...
It clicks or it doesn't.
Yeah, that's like the make or break point of the game. You kind of figure it out or you don't.
Exactly, yeah.
But when you do, it's beautiful.
Oh,
it really is. It's so good.
As much as I have a personal qualm with the end of that game, that fight is amazing.
That fight gets so hard. And actually, when you go to the final Pantheon, or maybe it's the second to last Pantheon in the God Home,
yes.
There is another version of the Mantis Lords where all three of them fight you at once.
Oh my god.
Oh lord. You want to talk about watching an absolute dance? Watch somebody play that. There is no margin for error. You're basically playing the same thing, but you are constantly, like, you have to dodge while you're attacking and, like, dodge in the right directions to attack. And it's crazy. It's so cool.
It's just like one of my Japanese animes.
We'll get to that game later. Anyway, what's your next one?
For the next one for me would be the Cyber Demon from Doom. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I did not get far. Zach,
that's
first-person shooters make me go...
So for those of you who have played...
Out of nausea, not that I discuss them. I want to make sure I'm clear.
So the Cyber Demon is basically what it is on the tin. It's a bipedal mechanized demon with a rocket launcher for an arm, and he's got, like, metallic legs to help him go faster. And in the original game, like, he is the second act boss. You spawn into the level, and there's a room where there's a ton of ammunition, especially for your rocket launcher. And so once you gather it all up, and then you're warped out of that room, you are face to face with him, and the game expects you to have a...
Is this a go nuts boss?
Yes. Well... Kind of. So it's like, it wants you to get into a rocket launcher duel with
exactly,
him.
yeah. It wants you to go into the most dangerous, kind of intense stuff. It's Doom.
Yeah, it is Doom. And the thing that I like is that, especially if you were playing it back in the day, you played with no mouse because mice weren't really necessitated. You played with a keyboard to strafe and turn at the same time. It really wanted you to learn the strafing technique. Now, the thing was, on normal, it was easier because there were no ads going around. However, on Ultraviolence and Nightmare and stuff, they add the Lost Soul monsters, those little flaming skulls that just keep pelting you. So they will lock onto you, and if you fire your missile at the wrong time, that thing will get in the way, and you'll be hit by your own splash damage and die.
Oh my gosh, that's mean.
It is, and the nice thing about the level 2 is that if you, like, secret hunt, you can actually find the room you spawn in and pick up some more health or missiles if you need it.
Okay, that's a good safe way to make sure that players aren't hit against a brick wall.
Exactly.
You want them to have fun.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing I love, too, is that if you are a good secret hunter, you can just say, rocket duel? Nah, taste some plasma, you jerk, and you just whip out the BFG.
Yeah, and annihilate them.
It's such an iconic fight, and I think it still holds up even at all these years later. And he's basically come back in every single other Doom game. So he's back in Doom 2, obviously, back in Doom 3, Doom 2016, and I think he actually comes back in Eternal. I have yet to really get through Eternal. Still, it's a boss that endures, and I think it's just emblematic of the series as a whole. What about you? What's your next one, buddy?
So I actually just realized, for one, I have Legend of Zelda is going to show up twice on here. But for one, I actually forgot to put one we were talking about when I was making my list.
Yeah.
So I'll just briefly mention Majora. The actual demon Majora at the end of Majora's Mask is so... We'll probably talk about it more in an episode where we talk about things that irrationally scared us as kids playing video games.
Yeah, exactly.
Majora is a freaking nightmare. Yeah. And yeah, it's like a reward for if you can find all of the masks in the game up to that point, you're in exchange for all of them at once, given the Fierce Deity mask, so that you can just absolutely slaughter Majora in like a one-on-one fight where you're on the same level.
Yep.
Versus where you're going in as a little kid and the rest of Majora's Mask is like this nightmare world that you're having to experience, and it is just this demon like smacking you with whips, running around, mocking you, and it is freaky.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen clips and I've watched people fight it, and I just look at that, I think, this was an E-game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that is
strange.
You want to talk about Majora's Mask? That is the least of your concerns with the freaky stuff in Majora's Mask.
No, I know. Yeah, the screaming every time you put on a new mask and all that.
Yeah. So, like, I just, actually, on the 25th anniversary of Ocarina of Time, Clover and I finished playing Ocarina of Time 100%.
That's right,
And, I knew she wanted to play Majora's Mask, because that was the manga that we read next for her bedtime stories.
Aw, yeah.
So I was, like, trying to edge her towards Wind Waker instead, because it's cartoony and a lot more, I think she will like it more.
Yeah.
She's like, no, I want the one with young Link. I want Majora's Mask. And I'm like, okay. So now whenever I put a mask on, if you double hit it with the C-stick, you skip that animation. I'm like, let's never look at Link screaming as he tries to put these on.
Well, I mean, it also saves time anyway. So,
it does. So, anyway, I don't want to try and double dip here, but I wanted to mention Majora because I'd forgotten it. So the Zelda one that I had at this point in my list is actually from Twilight Princess. So there is this iconic moment in this game where you are trying to cross the Bridge of Eldin. And King Bulbin, this enormous, just bulbous goblin dude, riding a boar, an armored boar, like from Dark Souls, and he has this enormous axe, I think, right?
It was either an axe or a lance, one or the other.
I think it was, I don't know, he was like trying to like club you off with something, but it might have been a lance. But the thing is, the Bridge of Eldin, you have to fight him on horseback.
Yes.
And the Bridge of Eldin has no guardrails.
Nope.
You are over Lake Hylia, and it is like a mile below you. Okay, so it's like certain death. So you are trying to lance this guy in the most dangerous place imaginable.
Yep, all the while trying to save one of the kids that he's kidnapped.
Yes, because he had just attacked Kakariko Village. You were trying to save these kids that were back from your opening village. Like, the story part, it's like really important, and you were like chasing him down trying to save this kid.
Yep.
Because I think you actually had a really fun fight beforehand where you were fighting in Hyrule Field. Like, just open in the map.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of moblins on horseback, and they're shooting arrows at you. So that's like the lead up to this. So it's a very tense fight. And you get to this, and the trick is you really should not try to fairly clash with this guy in the center. You will always lose.
Yes.
He will smack you off of Epona. You might just go tumbling off the edge, and you're dead. What you instead need to do is whip out your bow, which you're probably already thinking because of that sequence beforehand where you kind of needed your bow to catch up to him and stop him. You have to bring out your bow and fire at him to make him flinch while you're about to hit him so he can't get you. Then you can, like, start knocking him off. And when you finally hit him enough times to beat him, and this is a tough fight. As I mentioned, this is not that easy.
Yeah.
Luckily, GameCube/Wii controls are miles above the N64 when it comes to aiming your bow on horseback.
Yeah, it doesn't, like pull you back to the center of the screen.
Not only that, it's just how jerky it is on N64 coming from somebody who just got the final bottle in Ocarina of Time, when you have to hunt down every single one of those Poe.
Yeah.
And they disappear so fast, they run into the walls, and you're jerky aiming, and it's a nightmare.
But it's a definite upgrade, and does make the fight a heck of a lot more fun.
Yes, it's a real challenge, and it actually feels fair.
It does, yeah.
It feels just as challenging, but yeah, it feels totally fair. And I think what really seals the deal on this fight is as soon as you beat him, you get this epic cutscene.
Yeah.
Where you got like the twilight murky sky in the background, and in slow motion Epona rears up on its back legs, and you raise your sword up like a
victorious knight.
Yeah, like the Napoleon Bonaparte painting. Like, it's glorious, and it is just magnificent. Like, that would never have actually clicked were that fight been stupid easy or something like that.
No, I agree. Yeah,
you need to earn it, but it also needs to be like really fun and engaging and interesting. It's something that Zelda's never really done before.
Not to that extent, no. Yeah. But
anyway, I love that fight.
Good. All right, so for me, my next fight would be one that just came out of left field for me, and I think for a lot of you who've played this game. It's from Super Mario Odyssey. It is the Ruined Dragon fight.
This fight is so... We probably should have seen it coming with the opening Cascade Kingdom's T-Rex takeover.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to weirdly cross into realistic stuff, which is what the Ruined Dragon, well, kind of does. Ruined Dragon's in a dark fantasy world.
Yeah, like, I'm like,
It is
what?
straight out of Dark Souls.
It literally is, because it's like, it's a ruined
Almost
castle.
Bloodborne. It's really
There's like it's a stormy sky.
purple fire lanterns or something like that.
Yeah, and so it's like, you don't expect it, because it's like, it takes place between a transition to kingdoms, just like your first Bowser fight.
Cartoony ones, too. I think you had just left the Forgotten, the one where you fall down to get to it.
Yes.
I forget the name of the Forgotten Kingdom or something like that.
Something
and then
like that,
I think you're moving to the Bowser's Castle Kingdom, which is that boppin', super excited, colorful
yes,
world.
the Japanese-inspired one.
God,
yes.
I love that world too.
I do too.
Mario Odyssey is such a great game.
It really is.
But yeah, what's so great about this dragon?
Well, like I said, it's like the lead up to it. You don't know where you are. You're in this castle.
Yeah, I think you wrecked here. Is that right?
Yes. So, like, you wrecked there, and you're just trying to figure out, okay, where am I? And there are all these, like, golden stakes attached to chains, like, stuck down in the ground, and you find out, oh, Cappy can attach to him and pull him up, just like a lot of the interactables you can find throughout the rest of the world.
By this point, this is second nature. You just...
Yeah.
You do it immediately.
You
like
want-
in Metroid, you shoot it, and you immediately just like start throwing your hat.
Yeah, you want coins? Yeah, there you go. A couple coins for you. And then eventually you get to the place where you fall down from a tower down onto this giant platform, and all of a sudden you just hear this swell of music, and then these claws just come out of nowhere, and this dragon, this purple and black dragon, just pulls itself up from nowhere and just roars and just starts spewing lightning at you.
Yeah, this huge, realistic-looking dragon. And he's also got a really cool fight too, where he sends out like shockwaves and like beams of like fireballs and stuff. You have to like find a way to like maneuver around them while also being near him enough so that when he's vulnerable, you can hop on top of his head.
Right, because
do the same kind of trick with Cappy.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, in order to even do damage to him, like you said, you got to avoid enough damage, and then he tires himself out to where you were able to jump on his head, and on his head are multiple of those golden spikes driven into his head, which help him conduct electricity. And so, you just throw your cap, and you just watch as he recoils in pain. And this whole time, I have the biggest grin on my face because I'm like, I'm fighting a dragon as Mario in a chef outfit.
I know, right? But also, I'm pretty sure, like, you have the opportunity to get even more while you're up there. You don't have to get like one at a time. And of course, I get greedy and I try and go for one. And I get two. He's starting to move. I want to get three. And he'll attack you and knock you off if you stay too long. So you won't want to play chicken.
Right.
And the more you take off, I'm pretty sure the more powered up he gets.
Yeah. So
until you get like to the second last one. So when it comes down to like 2 or 3 left, you really want to try and somehow get all of them quickly.
Right, and I think the boss gets even better when, spoilers, you unlock a secret kingdom at the end of the game. I won't say which one for those who haven't played. There is a place where you can actually challenge new and tougher versions of past bosses, and there's one for the Ruined Dragon. So instead of like spitting out like 3 lightning discs at you, he starts spitting out 5 with minor homing abilities, and the shockwaves are bigger, come at you more frequently. When I finally beat that version of the boss, I was so happy. It felt so good.
Don't you also have to start those with like 1 HP or something?
Yes, you do.
So those were so hard.
Yeah, it's like those Mario Galaxy challenges where you can't take a single hit of damage, yes.
Yeah, the darker side is the thing that sticks out for me, is like that super satisfying, like, yes, that gauntlet getting the final moon, the trio of moons.
But enough about cool dragons in my cartoon Mario game. What about you? What do you got next?
So, I'm going to talk about a new game. This game came out this year. Because you would think we're talking about memorable boss fights. We were kind of worried we were just going to talk about stuff that's kind of along, when we were kids. Because it is memorable in the sense that we have remembered it for a long time and it has stuck with us. It's obviously something that's going to stick with us.
Yes.
There is a particular boss in Pikmin 4 that I guarantee you, anybody who has beaten this game, that boss is going to stick with them.
You showed me this one, and I thought there's no way they put this in this.
I'm talking about the groovy long legs.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't want any Pikmin 4 spoilers, just kind of skip ahead a minute or so. Good lord! I love this. So, in Pikmin 1 and 2, you do fight these creatures that are in the long leg family. Think of like a daddy long leg, a spider, and instead use its actual body itself as like a party balloon that will pop open and has, confetti that pops out when you're done killing the thing.
I know.
It's really silly.
It is.
Pikmin 2 made it even weirder. There was a version of it that was mechanized and had an actual laser sight Gatling gun that came out of the bottom and would shoot at your Pikmin.
Oh my God. I hated fighting that thing every time I found it.
That was
oh my God.
I had actual like fear of this thing because I was finally getting to it at the bottom of this in this cave to get to that one, and I think I had like 8 Pikmin with me. I was like, come on, I don't know what this boss is, but we got to be able to do this. We have to be able to do this. Oh my God. I was so terrified. Immediately, like, it comes out, starts shooting my Pikmin. He shoots 7 of the 8. I guess now I'm telling the story, because I love the story. He shoots, like, 7 of the 8 of these things, and I have 1 purple. And he's too slow to run away from the beam, so what I'm doing, I run up to him, and I grab him, and I throw him out of the way. I take the shot for him, and he finally goes back down. We try and fight with the 1 purple over and over again, and I eventually beat it. And that 1 purple, I let him retire for life. I was like, you're done, okay? Okay, buddy? You watched every single one of your friends die, and you had to fight that nightmare. So these long-legged families are already, like, a lot of fun. They're also really high up. You have to, like, throw particular type of Pikmin up really high to get to them.
Yeah, like in Pikmin 3, how there's a hairy version where you could, like, throw the Pikmin onto its hair and it climbs up to get damage. Yeah.
Alright, so, of course, now that I told that story, now that the people who skipped ahead to try to skip the Groovy Longlegs thing, now we're going to talk about Groovy Longlegs. Sorry about that. So you walk into this dark bottom of this cave, so you know a boss is here, and the cave is called the Below-Grade Discoth. Which I love that name.
Huh.
So you go in there, and there is a disco ball hanging from the ceiling. And you approach it, and all of a sudden, 4 legs come down around it, and that is the center of the Groovy Longlegs. And the best part is it actually starts stomping its feet to the beat of its own music that it plays out of an amplifier from its head. It's like boom, boom, boom.
So like it's an actual club, like a rave kind of thing. Yeah.
It's this rave party, and you're throwing your Pikmin at the ball, of course, right? Because that's how you know how to damage these things.
Yes.
And you don't want to get stomped on by the giant legs. That's how it's defeating your Pikmin.
Right.
So you're throwing your Pikmin at this thing, and all of a sudden it plays this air horn. And it sprays this red juice, like, smoke everywhere, right? You know, like fog machines, and it starts lighting up and flashing in red lights and playing new music. Like, da 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 da, and it's stomping faster to this, and the Pikmin get inflicted with this new, I guess it's a status ailment, where they are just entranced by the flashing disco ball in the smoke, and they are in this rave party, and they will not listen to your commands. They are just jumping like crazy in a mosh pit. It's a Pikmin mosh pit under this thing, and it is stomping and trying to kill as many as it can.
Like, it literally drops the beat and just brings the pain. That's amazing.
It's so good. And when you finally beat the thing, it's like it plays another one of those air horns, like, it just... like, I could not stop laughing. I lost so many Pikmin, and it was so funny.
But that's not the point. The point is you fought a giant disco ball.
The disco ball had, like, scarier war stories. I'm sure anybody who's played this, God, has, like, you will never forget that fight.
No,
and it's also, like, it still, like, mechanically is a really interesting fight, because it, similarly to, like, how those clams are, a very basic enemy in Pikmin 1.
Yeah.
You know, a clam is open, it's got a pearl sitting inside, you want the pearl, you throw the Pikmin inside, they start attacking it, you see the thing's about to shut its mouth, you call your Pikmin out, slam. If you were too late, it ate some.
Yep.
This is the same fight, but it's hilarious. You throw your Pikmin at it, and if you know what to look for, you'll see he's about to shoot the gas, or you can hear the music cue. Yep. Call your Pikmin while you can, get him out of there. Exact same fight. If you rinse and spit with that thing, it's not hard.
Right.
But you will fall for it the first time if you don't know what's coming. And you will probably piss yourself laughing, as I almost did. It was outstanding.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I gotta get this game. I beat every other Pikmin game.
Oh god, it is so good.
Yeah.
Outside of some minor gripes of mine, it is the best Pikmin game. And this comes from, I adore the other Pikmin games.
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
So we need to talk about Pikmin some more on here. But anyway, enough about Pikmin.
Yeah, well, instead of Pikmin, we're gonna go to another franchise that starts with P and ends with Okamon. Pokemon Silver and Gold. Or Heart Gold and Soul Silver, depending on your generation.
The boss is still in here. I was just thinking there really isn't much of a difference in terms of what you can access.
I didn't think so.
Not really.
So, I loved Pokemon Red as a kid, and I was so excited when I found out that they were bringing out Gold and Silver. I'm like, heck yeah, give me that. Let me get that in my veins, please.
Absolutely. Oh, me too, man.
And I was digging it. I was loving the day-night cycle. The gyms
were so cool.
The gyms were fun up to that point.
Yeah.
And then, you hit a wall.
The third gym, I think.
Yes, the third gym.
Mm-hmm.
A normal type gym.
Mm-hmm.
And you just sit there and think, oh, this is going to be easy. Normal types are easy. And then you meet the gym leader.
Yeah, you can't be super effective against me. You can't be that strong.
Uh-huh.
She sends out a Jigglypuff first.
Whitney. Sends, yeah.
I'm sorry.
The boss.
Or a Clefairy. One of the two.
Yeah, I was going to say Whitney is the one I'm thinking of because it's like she is still burned into my skull as a result of this fight.
Oh
yeah,
my god.
Because as a kid, I'm like, wait a minute. Hold up, something ain't right. So she, like you said, she sends out her Jigglypuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay enough.
Yeah,
I get
it
it fine.
puts you to sleep. It's probably the worst thing that it could do.
And then eventually, Miltank. Miltank comes out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what the crap is this?
Yeah, what even is a Miltank?
What the hell? I don't know. What are you?
Just fighting with a cow.
Yeah. And then it's like, well, this can't be that bad. It looks cute enough.
Mm-hmm.
Roll out. Every single time. And as a kid, I'm like, what's it doing? And then it just...
Yeah, Rollout, I believe, is a new move for Gen 2.
Yes, and so...
So it was like, new Pokemon, new move, what's happening?
Yeah, and so one of my Pokemon goes down. Another one goes down because as soon as it comes out, Rollout continues. And it just does more damage. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing? And I was a stupid kid. I didn't think to buy a couple revives at this point.
Sure, yeah,
but
you're stubborn too.
Mm-hmm.
But also, the trick with Whitney is to realize that, yeah, if you can shut down Rollout or just prevent her from doing it, the fight's over.
Yeah.
Or, obviously, just find some way to get a fighting-type move, which is a lot easier in Heart Gold, Soul Silver because of the new updated moveset from Diamond and Pearl versus the original game.
Oh, God,
The original game, I think you could only, like, go in one of the caves and find a Machop or something. That was your only hope.
Yeah, either that or you traded, and...
Or if you were insightful enough to already have the knowledge that Rollout is not a normal type move, it is a rock type move.
Which I didn't quite grasp as a kid.
Yeah, so if you have, like, a Geodude,
Uh-huh.
she's not going to kill you.
Right, exactly.
However, the Rollout is an interesting attack. So at the very first time she uses it, and once you use Rollout, you're kind of stuck into using it. So it's not really the boss's fault for this. The boss has like a 1 in 4 chance of choosing Rollout, and then as soon as she does, she's doing it continuously until she misses.
Yep.
And Rollout only has like a 75% accuracy or something like that.
It was something like that,
yeah. But the trick is every time it hits, the next time it hits, it will double power. And then double and double. So you're not taking much at first. You're like, this is easy. And then it starts one-shotting your team.
Exactly. And that's what happened with me as a kid. Because I was like, no, this isn't right. I should be winning. What the heck is this?
Insult to injury, when you do beat her, she throws a hissy fit and starts crying and won't give you the badge.
Oh, I know.
You actually have to like leave and talk to some of the other trainers and try and nag her into it. I am actually a little irrationally bothered by this because 2 of the 3 Johto gym leaders that are female throw a hissy fit and cry and refuse to give you the badge.
Now that you say that, yeah, that's
Claire
true.
does it too. Jasmine is the only one who does not.
Huh.
That's kind of misogynistic, Japan.
Yeah,
Which, of course, you can't even acquire Miltank until you pass Ekruteak. Which Ekruteak, honestly, if you want to talk about one of those gym battles that really stopped me, Whitney, I don't think I ever lost to Whitney.
I was a dumb kid who was just so used to steamrolling the first game.
Sure,
so,
yeah.
You know.
Maybe it was my team lineup matchup, but Morty, the next gym leader, was so much harder.
Yeah,
to me.
I can see
He has 2 Gengars that early in the game, and they're using Shadow Ball on you, so they're gonna stab Ghost. It is, oh my god, he's a nightmare.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it just stood out more to me because that mix of new
anything
Pokemon,
that shuts you down,
move.
you'll remember it. Yeah, especially when Pokemon does something difficult for a change.
Yeah.
Like, I really admire the first game's Brock, because it's like, it's not just Brock. It's like the first few gym leaders are intentionally there to force the player, no matter which starter they choose, to learn how types work.
Yep.
And they're not, like in Black and White, telling you, here is a new Pokemon to use to beat the gym leader because this is super effective against that type, and you should use this Pokemon. They give it to you and you are forced to do it. It's dumb.
That's silly.
Versus, like, I choose Charmander and I go to fight Brock and I learn a hard lesson, not based on someone telling me, but from experience.
Yep.
And I think that's much better game design.
I think so, too. All right, but...
Anyway, Pokemon.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a good Pokemon boss. We normally don't say anything good about Pokemon on this show. Pokemon hasn't been good for a long time is really what it is, so...
Yeah, and personally, like I said, after Ruby, I just kind of fell off it, so that was just me.
I made the mistake of continuing to play for the sake of the internet. Oops.
All right, buddy. Anyway, mistakes made. But anyway,
mistakes made. Okay,
what's your next one?
I want to talk about Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I love this game.
I do too.
I have reviewed this game.
Yes.
Now, I also recently reviewed Luigi's Mansion 2 Dark Moon, or just Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon / Luigi's Mansion 2, based on whichever era you are playing this game in. Nintendo, make up your darn minds.
Coming out on Switch too, so if you missed out on the 3DS, you'll have an opportunity again.
Yeah, it's fine. I would only do it if you're like a diehard Luigi's Mansion fan, because I think 2 is... I love Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah.
I don't like 2.
That's fair.
2, as I just reviewed it, I was actually thinking I was going to do Symphony of the Night. I was hoping people were going to vote for that on Castlevania for my little Halloween specials. They voted for Luigi's Mansion.
That's fine.
Okay, well, let's do it. So I love Luigi's Mansion 2. I mean, as well. Because in 2, you do not have portrait ghosts. And that's like the real charm of like what makes Luigi's Mansion 1 so cool.
Yes.
Because you're in the Mario Kingdom. It is definitely still kooky, cartoony.
Yeah.
But you're in a haunted mansion.
Yeah.
And you can't just say, okay, well, these cute little cartoon-colored ghost things that you will continue to kill in Luigi's Mansion 2 are the extent of ghosts. I don't have to think of them as real people.
Right.
Your first quadrant of bosses, the game kind of sections off like multiple bosses to take down, is this wing of the mansion that is where the family lives.
Yeah.
The first room you have to deal with is the father, who's in his rocking chair. You have to figure out how to exploit the timing to get him to... It's a lovely puzzle. I love how these work to beat these guys. Then you go farther down. You beat the mom by opening up the curtains. She has to go try and shut the drapes to stop the draft.
Yep.
You surprise her, suck her up. You just got the dad, you got the mom, and you're thinking you are actually sucking up real people that lived in this mansion.
Yeah.
And then when you leave that door, you hear crying.
Yeah.
Crying down the hall. So you go down the hall, and you open the door, which is now unlocked, and you're in a baby's room.
Yep.
It is about to really go there.
Yeah.
And there's nothing inside. You look around, and you notice the rocking chair. There's like giggling, and it's moving by itself. Or I think there was just a giggling. You have to like vacuum the rocking chair to make it go faster or something like that.
Yep.
And the baby appears, and it says it wants to play with you, and it like sucks you into this nightmare world where you are shrinked down to itty bitty size on top of his crib, where he starts shooting all sorts of huge
like rocking chairs, bouncy
balls and stuff at you, and you have to like use those to try and fight back at this giant baby so you can suck it up. Oh my god, this is Chauncey from Luigi's Mansion. This is the first one I think is so memorable because this is the one where I realized this game is not gonna mess around. It's not just like happy little go lucky Nintendo Mario World.
Right.
Sure, like the dad was kind of funny, the mom was like kind of, same deal, kind of cute and funny.
Yeah.
That's a dead child.
That's a dead baby.
That is a dead child. And you are trying to suck this thing up into a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
And it is like putting you into this nightmare world. Like, this is a Mario game. We just talked about talked about the ruined dragon.
I know,
You off.
just out of context, you're trying to suck a baby up with the vacuum
you're trying to suck
cleaner.
a ghost baby into a vacuum cleaner.
Oh god. Out of context it's hilarious, but in context, like with the atmosphere and the music and like him throwing a tantrum when you're beating it.
That's what makes
like,
it so scary, because the child, like, it doesn't understand that it's dead, and it's just trying to play with you, who is alive and doesn't understand it will kill you.
Yeah,
It's so cool. And that's the kind of stuff that, like, it sets up the rest of the game perfectly. It's a nice puzzle boss, too. It's got its own arena. I love the setup of, like, the mother and the father thing going into the empty room with the crying, and you actually return much later in the game to take out the twins next door, too.
Yes, you do.
Too, but they're not even close to on that level of, like, shocking the crap out of you, because the game has done its thing.
Yeah.
And from here on out, it's just different characters, different puzzles, and unfortunately, that is what you don't get in Luigi's Mansion 2.
No, well, it doesn't look like for 3, but I have yet to get around to number 3.
I hear 3's a lot better, but yeah, I have not played 3 either, so
anyway.
maybe eventually.
Yeah, so it's like I just thought it's like, oh, creepy ghost baby. When I was a kid, I'm like, okay, let's just do this.
Yeah, like I can think of a bunch of other bosses that I really liked, like the pool table guy, and there's like the ghost who tells the fortune. You have to bring Mario's clues to her.
That's right.
Like, sure, there's other memorable moments, but none of the bosses, like maybe Bogmire, like really stick out in my head.
Yeah, exactly. I can
in the same way, like
that.
the giant boo or like the final bosses do, but
yeah.
I'm thinking of like just bosses in general, and I'm surprised actually actually, so far as we're going through here, there's very few final bosses we've done.
Yeah, we're about to break that trend.
We will.
Yeah, so anything else you wanted to say before we move on?
Break that trend, Zach.
All right. So, I'm going to also put up spoiler tags for this one. So
yeah, this is also kind of a new game.
Skip to this timestamp to avoid the final boss for Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
Kirby.
Alex, this is the game that has made me a Kirby fan.
You were not a Kirby fan?
Not particularly, no. I liked Kirby as a character, and I liked, like...
Like, how many Kirby games have you completed before this point? Just giving someone a chance to skip ahead, by the way, is what I'm doing.
One or two, I think.
Oh, really?
It wasn't even that much.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I was familiar enough with the character, and, like, the lore, and, like, DDD, and all that stuff.
The air quotes lore of... Someone steals Kirby's cake, and he has to go on a journey to stop who he thinks stole the cake, and he's wrong, and then he has to end up stopping some nightmare abomination creature.
When you go to, like, the boss stages in, like, the 3DS games, you can actually see their lore in the pause menu, so you actually know more about them, and it's like, oh, this is a Kirby game.
Yeah, and almost every Kirby game has weird implications that it's happening in the real world.
Yeah.
And now that we've skipped far enough, absolutely in Forgotten Land.
You find out.
Oh, yes.
The Forgotten
Land is Earth.
Uh-huh. So you gain a new partner in this like you do with a lot of other Kirby games. Elfilin. I love this little guy, and I love the fact he's got like a little chipped ear and all that stuff. And
I played more Kirby games, so immediately when I started this game up, I'm like, that thing's evil.
Yep.
Like, that thing's evil.
That thing, it has to be.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you're playing the game, and then eventually Elfilin gets captured by DDD's Beast Pack.
Right.
And so it's like, oh,
I love that fight, too. The DDD fight is so great.
The first one is a lot of fun.
And the music, too.
Yep. And then you're like, oh, I want my buddy back. So you keep going further, and then eventually you're finding out that this place had like a sort of apocalyptic event. You get to this research facility at the top of a volcano, and more things happen, and it turns out that your little buddy is half of an intergalactic being that fell to Earth and gave Earth teleportation technology.
And was, in a way, responsible for the entire human race being
just
spirited away.
Yes. And so eventually you fight the leader of the Beast Pack, and it turns out that this thing that the Beast Pack answers to is the other half of Elfilin.
Well,
Forgo Fecto.
Forgo Fectus, I think.
Yeah, Forgo Fecto or Forgo Fectus. And then, you get into a boss fight with him after you think you win, and then eventually it absorbs Elfilin after you save him. And then eventually...
You actually skipped my favorite boss in the game. If I can quickly, chime this in.
Yeah.
So as you are fighting this thing in the area with, like, realistic human voices warning you in a facility to get out, which really was unsettling to me. Because especially that the opening music that you hear with vocals is, I believe it's in Japanese.
I think so.
And, of course, like, I'm listening to that, like, oh, that's neat. And then I'm hearing English later in the game, like, what? And you get deeper and you start fighting this boss and you think you've beaten it. And a butterfly flies into the room. And I played enough Kirby games to know, oh god.
After I saw, I had no idea who this was.
Yeah, it's like it's Morpho Knight.
Now I'm scared of orange butterflies.
Oh yes, orange butterflies are scary.
Oh my god. It's still though.
You fight him. He's in the game.
He is in the game. And oh my god, like I said.
And that's why we have spoilers.
Yes.
Because I couldn't say it in my review.
Right.
I really wanted to. Because that was so cool.
Now I'm like, whenever I go back to my 3DS and play the 3DS games, I'm expecting orange butterflies
I'm a sucker for little callbacks like that. Like a Smash Brothers reveal. Where like the people who know are watching are like, oh my god! And everyone else is like, that's a butterfly.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff is great.
Oh, you know the funny thing too? The fact that you see him at the very beginning of the game and he gets sucked into the world with you.
Morpho? You see him?
You see the orange...
I didn't see... Oh, the butter... Oh my god, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, when Kirby is about to get sucked in and everything is going in around him.
I remember now, yeah.
Yep, the orange butterfly's like trying to fly away, but then it's like, nope, it gets sucked in.
That's great.
So what happens after you beat Forgo Fecto, once you're cornered at the end of a hallway, it absorbs Elfilin. And it goes away. And you're like, no, you give me my friend back. Yeah, Fecto Elfilis, the combined form of the being that came down to Earth.
So you're thinking like also counting that phase afterward where Kirby then, because I think actually part of fighting him you have to like inhale on his head when he's weakened.
Yeah.
And try to like shimmy off.
Well, the boss is such a different...
your friend is like stuck into him and you're trying to get him off and you like try and shimmy him off.
Yeah, that part. Yeah, because the boss itself, it's like, what I love is that it's so different from a lot of the other bosses up to this point, because they're very close to you usually. No, this guy will fly away and he will just charge you with his trident as he goes by.
He'll shoot meteors your way. He'll summon like portals, and huge stuff will come crashing your direction. You have no choice but to just run as far as you can.
And then once you finally do enough damage, like you said, Elfilin tries to get out, and so you have to like latch onto the little bubblies, and you're trying to get Elfilin out, all the while the monster is trying to lift up its trident to get you in a final desperate move. And I'm like, I know it's something that you have to intentionally fail, but the first time I played it, I'm like, no, you give me my friend, get away. And so eventually you get him loose, and the thing starts kind of falling apart. And then
realizing that, it's going to go, so it tries to do like a self-sacrificial screw you, Kirby, and destroy the world.
Yep.
Which then kicks in a remix of the Invincible theme from the first game.
Yep, it's a sore loser, and so it opens a portal over Planet Popstar, and it's going to take you out with your own planet. And so, I'm like I said, I didn't play a lot of Kirby, so
Kirby
this is
games get this intense. Though this, admittedly, is probably the most crazy that we've had so far. And especially how you go about destroying him.
Yep, so as everything is falling apart, a truck falls down. A semi-truck.
Yeah, not like a truck, a semi-truck.
Yes.
With a full trailer.
And Kirby is able to swallow it.
The whole thing.
And you basically race to the finish along these falling buildings.
With the Invincible music. Jumping between these.
Oh my god.
Bayonetta leaping off rubble into the sky as a semi-truck.
And so as you're like... as you, with the power of Elfilin, just like shoot into the sky to basically run this thing over, it's throwing pieces of the planet at you, it's throwing beams at you, and you think you've lost, but then Kirby finally gets an angry face, and you're like, oh, this is serious now. And then eventually you get into a Dragon Ball Z fight, and then you just
clashing each other with...
And with the power of friendship, you destroy him.
It's so good.
Oh my god.
It's so good.
It's like I said, it's this whole game that's made me a Kirby fan, and I want to go back and play every Kirby game now.
That is one of those video game boss fights where you stand up for no reason.
Yeah.
When you're playing, you're like, oh, it's getting intense when you're like, oh my god.
Like, the final bit itself is not that mechanically, like, deep, but it's the fact that it's like, oh, I don't want to go through all this again. And it's just such a pitch-perfect
Well, your heart's racing.
Yes.
You know, like, you want it to work. And also, I really appreciate that when you get to that point, it's actually really easy. Because, like, you really don't want the player to go, oh, man, I lost at the truck part.
Yeah, because you had that final boss moment. Now here's the emotional end.
Yeah, this is the rush, the payoff. And
exactly.
Oh my god, it's so good.
So good.
Anyway, we're going to move on to the other Zelda game that I wanted to talk about.
Yes, go ahead.
So, I'm going to talk about Link to the Past.
Okay.
This is one of the rare games I call an absolute masterpiece.
I agree.
Adore this game. I reviewed it, so I don't have to talk about it too much.
Shameless plug.
There's a perler of it up there behind my head that you can actually see right now. So, I want to talk specifically about a certain boss fight in the Dark World.
Yes.
This one actually scared the crap out of me as a kid.
I can see that.
I love this. So basically, you're fighting through a regular dungeon in The Legend of Zelda, which if you're playing only the modern ones like Breath of the Wild on, you haven't really played a Zelda game at all. I'm talking like actual, like, full
classic style.
Yeah, puzzles, dungeons, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so you understand when you find a map, as you have before, there's a, in the compass, you get a little skull icon, shows you where the boss room is.
Yep.
You go into that boss room, there wasn't even like a boss key.
No,
You're like,
it's open.
Really? That's weird. You walk inside and there's nothing inside, except there's this light that's... no, not this light. I think there's nothing inside.
No, nothing
There's nothing inside.
Yeah.
So you eventually have to go upstairs, and you realize you're in the room above it, and it's a dead end.
But the floor is crumbled.
Zelda has no dead ends.
No.
There's no reason for you to have worked your way all the way over these hallways to get to this room above the boss room, and there's nothing there.
Yep.
So this is the room where you can see there's this big beam of light shining on this rubble that you can't reach. It's behind like a thin grating, but you can throw a bomb over it and blow that up.
Uh-huh.
And now, when you go back into that boss room, there's actually light shining inside. The reason you want to do that is because you'll keep fighting. Eventually, you will find a woman who's trapped in a cell. Like a cell within a cell within a cell within a cell. It's like 6 cells deep with monsters patrolling in each one.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. So you finally get to the back, and she says, "Oh, please, thank you for saving me. Take me outside."
Yep.
Which me as a stupid kid, I did, and
Yep.
she vanished.
Right, because you're trying to find the 6 maidens in order to save
Yes.
Zelda. Yep.
Yes, and I'd actually just mentioned to you this last night to you.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't notice until Kim's playthrough, when she just passed, Blind the Thief is the character that we're talking about.
Yes.
She had just passed this boss, and I realized, oh my gosh, the woman that's the maiden.
Yes.
So, as you realize,
And I
like,
didn't
hold
realize
on,
that either,
if
yeah.
you step outside, the woman disappears. Like, hold on, that's not right. You were not supposed to go outside. Where do I go? And then you think, I'm gonna go into the boss room. So you take her in the boss room and start looking around, and you take her under the sunlight, and you realize why she was not trying to go outside. The sunlight starts to burn her, and she transforms into this hideous, white-cloaked, like, red cat demon thing with, like, tentacle fingers.
Like, he's basically kind of like a weird cross between, like, an Oni wrapped up in, like, a death shawl almost.
Yes,
yeah.
it is. It was like, whoa! Like, I was trying to rescue this girl, and she just transforms into this monster. So this is Blind the Thief. So you realize that Blind the Thief was actually taking the form of the maiden you were coming for, trying to trick you into releasing it.
Yep.
Now, luckily, like, the game kind of catches itself, so it doesn't do that. I kind of wish she said something that indicated that if you made it to the palace front door, that was not right. Like, oh, the monsters are pulling me back, or say something. You know, give me the indication that's wrong.
Or it's like, I can't leave yet because I left something in the dungeon and we need to find it.
Yeah, something. Yeah, I lost something in the dungeon. It's in a higher room or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe you have to go into the boss room to get it. But either way, the actual fight itself is actually really tough.
It is.
It's one of the tougher ones in the game. So you start fighting this thing, and only its head, I think, is vulnerable. Which is really hard to reach when it's on the top screen going back and forth and shooting these fireballs at you, which you cannot block.
Nope.
No, these things suck. And it's going back and forth shooting fireballs. Eventually, and then we'll move to the bottom screen, which is a lot easier to hit because now we're doing top down, right? So you can see its head on the bottom screen, a lot easier to smack. And also try and get it with a hammer. You deal way more damage that way.
Yep.
So you're trying to get this thing going back and forth. Eventually, you defeat the head. The head, the rest of the cloak of the body, flitters down to the ground, revealing there's no body inside.
Nope.
And the head starts now bouncing around the room, randomly shooting fireballs everywhere. The cloak of the body then rises back up, and a new head forms inside, and you keep fighting. You fight the new head, and you do this again, and the head comes off again, and a third head comes out. This room is full of fireballs, and they're randomly going everywhere. This fight is an absolute nightmare, and you finally kill this thing, it explodes, and you save the actual maiden, who was trapped in the crystal that Blind the Thief had.
Yep, exactly.
Nuts.
It's that perfect, like, sort of,
like, you walked into that trap, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the fact that, like, you walk into the trap, and then the fight itself is one of the scariest in the whole game. It might be the scariest one. It's a freaky boss.
It really is. I mean, because it plays with your expectations so much.
Yeah, you feel violated.
Yeah, because, like, most of the other bosses you fought up to this point are, like, living suits of armor, a weird monster, a weird centipede,
Just
other
creatures, things that you could imagine in a fantasy world. This is, like, something obviously that can transform and take shapes, but also, whatever it is, it hates sunlight.
Yep.
Well, like, we don't even know what that is. But it's something, like, it's some occult crap that I don't want anything to do with.
Right. So, for my next pick, we're going to one of my favorite RPGs of all time, and my favorite of the whole series for Final Fantasy VI.
I just reviewed this game. In fact,
shameless plug.
Look, the whiteboard art from behind us is still the same. I haven't updated it yet. Final Fantasy VI.
Final Fantasy VI.
I love this game too.
I am so glad you do love it. I'm glad you finally got a chance to beat it.
I even talk about this in my review because it was like such a big part of my playthrough. I had to start this game so many times over because I was waiting for like the one good version. There's seemingly something wrong with every edition of this game.
Yeah, but this one I think
that's
is
neither
probably
here nor there.
Yeah, but the Pixel Remastered, the one you played, I think is the one to go with.
Though with the instant you're going to talk about, the original version of the Pixel Remaster screwed this boss fight up big time.
And I'm so glad they patched it.
They fixed it.
As you're trying to get to the Castilian Empire and trying to get all of your teammates together.
This is when you're separated.
Yes,
yeah,
everyone
I think I
is
glossed
separated.
Over this in the story. If you can believe it, I actually glossed over a lot in the story.
Yeah, so like after the river section and you deal with Ultros.
I think you have Shadow, Cyan, and Sabin at this point.
Yeah, you have Sabin and Shadow, and then you go and you find Cyan, who has
Oh no,
lost.
I'm sorry. He comes back in later because I know there's another point where you come into this boss fight with him.
Yes,
and he
you
finds
can.
his family on the train. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you which one we're
Yeah.
talking about because I can't finish my sentence without saying it.
That's okay. But anyway, so, you're going through trying to find your way through this forest with Cyan, Sabin, and Shadow. And then eventually you hear a train whistle, and you don't know what is going on. So you
In the
get
forest.
In the forest. And there's no train station, no conductor or anything.
Nope.
You get onto a platform, there's a train. You're like, well, maybe this will take us somewhere because we can't get out of this forest.
And I think Cyan has heard legends of this, is warning you, no.
Yeah.
Just get away from this.
Because he's from this region,
Yes.
so he's like, no, we're not doing this. And everyone's like, look, we're either going to be stuck in this forest forever or we get on. And so you get on.
And he reluctantly joins you.
Yep, and it's full of the undead and ghosts and everything.
Some of which will weirdly join your party for a while.
I know, I love that.
It's so weird.
Like, I had a ghost with me one of the first times I actually went through.
Yeah, they don't stay long, but they stay with you.
So you find out that you're supposed to get to the train because you're thinking, okay, we got to get to the engineer.
The engine room, right.
Yes. And so you get up there and you're like, okay, we don't want to deal with
where
this.
the train's going.
Yeah, we don't want to deal with this anymore. We need to get off. And so you go up there, nobody's there. You get outside on the engine and you're like, okay, we got to do something else. Something talks to you. And you're like, what's talking? It's the train.
The train is talking to you.
The train is a sentient or sapient being that is transporting the dead to the underworld.
Yes.
And so you get off the train and get into the boss fight. The background is a Mode 6, scrolling background, and you're running on the tracks.
In combat, you are running backwards on the train tracks, ahead of the train, facing back to the front of the train in combat with the train.
And you fight the Phantom Train. So, it's... it goes from being, a really weird and atmospheric bit.
And creepy,
yeah.
too. It's a really unsettling bit. And then this game is really great for, making you laugh at really sad or awkward moments.
And the thing that everyone knows who's heard of this boss knows, you can suplex the freaking train.
Yeah, so Sabin has input commands.
Yes.
Which I love how they fixed on the Pixel Remaster Collection.
Yes.
I didn't even get to mention this, but they actually show the commands on the top of the screen now.
Instead of having to memorize it.
Yes, you don't have to memorize anything. So, and that helps a ton with some of his later ones that were really involved.
Oh, God,
yeah. So, you can now just go straight up to this train on Sabin's turn, put in the right Meteor Strike input commands, he leaps up to it, grabs the train, leaps off screen carrying it, and comes barreling down, upside down with the train, and smashes it, and the train flips over right side up and lands back on the tracks and keeps fighting you. And you can repeatedly do this.
Yes.
And of course you will.
And as you play, it's actually a pretty fun fight because it will throw random statuses at you and it will run you over doing a multi-character strike.
Because of course you wouldn't step off the tracks.
Well, no,
Why
why would
you?
you?
Do that?
Because who knows? Maybe this thing can get off the tracks and run you over.
Or the tracks would just move. I don't know. It's a ghost train.
It's a ghost train. Who knows?
That's another thing. So this train was alive at one point, and the train died.
Or something is possessing this train.
Yeah, more than likely that makes more sense.
But
I don't know.
One of the other things that I loved about it in repeat playthroughs, especially when I figured out in a lot of Final Fantasies, the undead are susceptible to Phoenix Downs. If you use it on an undead, it kills them automatically.
Well, because a Phoenix Down in gameplay revives your knocked out party member.
Right. So
it's like a way back from death. It's it's down from a phoenix.
Yep. A feather.
So if it's bringing you back, then you do that same thing. Cast it on something that is undead, or throw your item at an enemy. There's just a chance. It's not guaranteed victory.
Not usually.
Yeah, there's a chance that it will just one-shot kill them.
And so, if you get lucky and you remember, you can, on the very beginning of the battle, if you get lucky, you just take a Phoenix Down, throw it at the train, poof, train's dead.
Done.
It's considered an undead enemy in the bestiary, and it's
But of course you're not going to do that. You're going to suplex the heck out of that train.
Oh yeah, you got to.
It's amazing.
And then, of course, right after that fight, that moment with Cyan.
Yeah, his family.
Yeah, saying goodbye to him.
Oh god, that's so sad. See, that's what's so great about that game, because it can turn gears 180 constantly.
It's able to weave its levity with its serious moments pretty well.
Yeah,
I think.
it can.
And I think that's what I appreciate about a lot of Final Fantasy Final Fantasy 12.
Yeah, I was gonna say 10 might be the last of the silly and the serious mixed.
Yes.
Then it's kind of straight face.
I think without Hironobu Sakaguchi's guiding hand, he's not the one who did the story for 6. He was producer and character input and story bits. But without his guiding hand, I think we lose something. Yeah. So It's a good fight.
I did mention before, and I probably should point out exactly what they did wrong. So in the original Pixel Remaster Edition, if you suplexed the train, you could do it.
Yes.
Like, it would still work, but for some reason, the train would always be right side up. So even though you're coming down upside down, the train is right side up again, and it's really
like it somehow was trying to wriggle out of your suplex or something.
It's weird. It just looks like the PNG sprite is just moving up and then moves back down again.
That's not fun.
It looks awful. No, I want to see that train actually flip over and then smash upside down on the tracks and then flip over again.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's that one. What's your next one, buddy?
I want to talk about one of my favorite games ever.
Which is?
Metal Gear Solid.
Ah, of course.
So, I'm talking about the PlayStation version, and the one fight that stands out to me, and might not be anybody else's particular favorite, but one that really stood out to me, that after I beat it, I put the controller down, and I'm like, wow, that was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Vulcan Raven.
I can get behind
the actual Vulcan Raven boss fight.
Yeah, not the first time.
Not the tank thing.
Yes.
Yeah, he's there, but he's not the fight.
No.
So when you're actually fighting Vulcan Raven, this is like a culmination, as we mentioned before, of everything you have learned up to this point put against a boss.
Yes.
Some of the other Metal Gear bosses up to this point are kind of like learning how are you supposed to fight this thing, because you're only equipped with the things that you have found up to this point. How are you supposed to stealth your way into like figuring out this boss, or they already see you? Mm-hmm. How do you stop Psycho Mantis? You got to figure them out.
Like Psycho Mantis sticks in a lot of people's minds more for obvious reasons.
For fourth wall breaking.
But as actual boss, I think Vulcan Raven is the superior fight.
I agree. Actually, fighting Psycho Mantis is it's like a flashy fourth wall thing. If you're like a speedrunner, for example, and like you're not interested in that at all, you're just playing it, it's not very fun.
Yeah.
So if you go to Vulcan Raven, this is interesting gameplay, because now all of a sudden you have this colossal dude carrying a Gatling gun.
Yeah, from a Vulcan air fighter.
He's somehow carrying this thing, and he is stomping down this area that is basically like a grid.
Yes.
And it's got like cubes in it, so places to hide and run around and try to ring around the rosy this guy.
I think
but
it's like
you do not want to do that.
Yeah, it's like a cold storage area, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a cold storage area, but it's got like these huge blocks inside of it.
Yes.
So you need to immediately get out of his sight, because if this guy sees you, Gatling gun. And that hurts.
Oh my god, yes.
So you get immediately punished for being seen. So that's what the whole gimmick is. And what I really love about that is the whole game is about stealth. Mm-hmm. And then when you get to boss fights, everything kind of changes into combat. Which, I mean, of course it does, but...
because you've been seen and you got to get your way out.
Exactly. Yeah. But this is the boss fight where it's like, stealth is the way to win.
Yes.
And you need to figure out, okay, how can I attack this guy without him even seeing that I was there?
And the beautiful thing is you have multiple tools at your disposal to do it.
And you might not even realize that they can do that, and you're repurposing things like, oh, I was picking up these landmines, and why would I ever use them?
Yes.
Because they would like set off an alarm if someone stepped on it.
Yeah.
Plant a landmine somewhere where I know I'm going to trick him into walking, and then boom, he steps on it. But then, what I really love about this fight that makes it even more clever than that, say you have a ton of landmines. You're like, oh, easy. I'm going to landmine my way through this. He learns how you're fighting him. And he's like, that trick's not going to work, and he will start shooting the landmines out of the ground. So you have to plant C4 on the walls. Blow him with that, he'll see the C4. You need to start figuring out, how am I going to keep tricking this guy into different sorts of traps.
You can like pop out from like around a box and pop a couple bullets into him. You can even use the Nikita missiles and like actually like dodge,
which also only work a couple times too, because he will start hearing, he'll listen for them, so
and
like,
then he'll shoot it down.
Yeah, I love that. Like he like learns how to fight you as you learn how to fight him.
Yes,
it really feels like you're fighting like a real like person.
Yeah,
it's brilliant. I love this fight. Great one. It's also similar. They bring this back kind of in a couple Metal Gear games, like the Fury in Metal Gear Solid 3.
Yeah.
Though that one's much more drawn out, and if he finds you, the game's basically over.
Yeah, and it's a lot harder to like get out of his line of sight, and it's just
those are long channels.
Yeah, it's long too, and that's the thing I think that messes it up for me is that it's just so long.
And he's the source of illumination with the fire.
Yes, exactly.
So before we move on, we wanted to mention a couple bosses that are similar to how Vulcan Raven fights, not in the same sense that it is taking everything you've learned and putting it all together, but that you're fighting this giant, overwhelming threat that cannot see you.
Yes.
Or it's basically game over, and you need to find a way to damage them. And there's a couple really clever ones that we wanted to mention, like Mr. Freeze.
Yep, Mr. Freeze from Arkham City.
Arkham City. So this is an interesting fight where, not in the sense that you have to keep trying other things to damage him because you are running out of stuff and he's learning, but because you're running out of things in the room to creatively use against him.
Yep.
Yeah, so
exactly.
that's how you fight him. So you knock him into something on this table and it spills some sort of chemical on him and deals damage.
Yep.
Versus like you get him locked into some other room. Yeah, you have to like slowly, and he destroys whatever thing you just last used to get him.
Right, and he'll say something similar. It's like, that won't work on me, world's greatest detective.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a fun fight, and wanted to mention that. And I also wanted to mention Salazar's right hand that comes off from Resi 4. And
Because of course it's like Metal Gear Solid.
of course it's like Metal Gear Solid, because Metal Gear Solid is a good base.
Yeah.
So
The right hand.
Yes, he is one of the Napoleonic-looking dude. One of his guards.
Salazar?
Salazar, I think. Yes.
You can talk. I'm a fact check while Zach tells you
Yeah,
about this
please
boss
fact
fight.
check. So anyway, so he sends his right hand after you, which is this weird, creepy insect thing that you're trapped down at the base of this elevator, and you're waiting for this elevator to come down so you can escape the dungeons with which you've been sent back up to try to get to Ashley again in this castle. So you're down in the dungeons, and you hear this like sort of clicking sound. And so the whole point of the battle is that if he sees you, he'll just rush you and try to damage you. You can't even fight him directly. Mm-hmm. So, or you can, but, you know, it requires repeat playthroughs with really strong weapons.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I found the solution to our little mix-up. Salazar is his name, the little Napoleon dude.
Okay, good.
Sadler is the actual main villain. So they're too close.
No, that's a writing thing. Like, they always tell you in writing, don't create characters with too similar a name in a story.
Yeah.
It just...
You say him too fast and you're saying the same name.
Yeah, so you're trying to hide from it, and down in this dungeon are these canisters of liquid nitrogen. So when he gets close, like as he's about to try to charge you, you shoot the nitrogen, it knocks it over, and it causes him to freeze, which allows you to basically roundhouse kick him, causing massive amounts of damage. You pull out your shotgun or your Uzi or whatever, and you just kind of lay into him while he's on the ground and his guard is down.
And then run.
And then run as soon as he's getting back up. It's a really fun fight, and I like it.
Because it's the Vulcan Raven fight.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's the Vulcan Raven fight.
Vulcan Raven fight.
Anyway, so now we're actually transitioning to your next one.
All right. My next one is also a Zelda one, and I think my only Zelda one on this list. Yes. So
we only talked about Zelda 4 times.
Whatever.
Zelda games are good.
Zelda games are good. So we are talking about the Wind Waker, and we are talking about the Helmarock King.
It's a big chicken.
Yeah. It's a big chicken with an iron mask. Mm-hmm. It's basically cosplaying as Leo DiCaprio from Man in the Iron Mask.
Okay.
2 of you out there will get that.
Yeah, it's all 2 of you. So this thing is antagonizing you.
Right.
Throughout, like, I think from the very beginning of the game.
Because he kidnaps your sister, Link's sister, right in front of him off of Outset Island. Mm-hmm. Yep. And so the whole point is you're trying to save your sister, and...
Like, sure, Ganon sucks, but... That bird's kidnapped your sister.
Oh, yeah, no, screw that bird.
I think it also kidnapped Tetra.
It does.
It does something with Tetra.
Yeah, and he's the one responsible for throwing you out of Ganon's Fortress Island as well.
Stupid
and sending you
chicken.
Right. So we're back at the point where we are finally able to try to take on Ganondorf. And in order to do that, in order to be able to save your family, you have to go through the Helmarock King. And so the fight starts out is that he descends from the top of this tower, and he's just watching you, and he's antagonizing you. All the while, Ganondorf realizes you're in the tower, and the tower starts flooding. So you have to go crawl up the side of the inside of the tower, using your grappling hook to, like, latch onto the swinging points, all the while trying to avoid being pecked at by the bird. And then eventually, once you finally get out, the tower starts to try to close the top door to steal the water away. But before that happens, in a flurry of feathers, freaking bird flies out and is silhouetted in the moonlight as it just screams at you, and his title comes up on the screen, and it's finally on. He has multiple phases where he'll be in the air and you can't really get to him, so you got to figure out a way to get him down. And then once he is down, he'll like kind of waddle on his feet, and he'll try to peck at you like a freaking chicken.
Yeah.
And so that's when you take your skull hammer and you just start laying into him like, this is for my sister, until eventually you break his iron mask, the thing that's guarding his weak point, and then it's on. And then when you finally trick him into trying to peck at you, you just take the master sword and you just go and poke, 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 and slash. It's such a fulfilling fight.
I think that's what it is. It's because of the build-up that makes it so good. It's almost like fighting Nightmare in Metroid Fusion.
Yeah.
It's this thing that, like, you have seen it in the backgrounds, like, whisking around, and it's watching you, and it's following you.
Well, it's also good villain design because he has been antagonistic to you since the beginning, and that you've had multiple interactions with this thing, and you just hate it.
Yeah, whereas you're just told Ganon is a bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you gotta go smack him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But well, this bird is almost like the real antagonist.
It really is.
This big stupid chicken.
It's a really cool fight, and I love it so much. It's one of my favorite things to revisit when I play this game. So, what about you? What's your next one?
So, I'm gonna move to the PlayStation 3.
Ooh.
I think that Dark Souls has one of the best opening boss fights I've ever played.
And we're talking about...
That is the Asylum Demon.
Yep.
So you begin Dark Souls in a cell with nothing.
Basically.
Which character setup you chose, you have basically nothing.
Or if you're deprived, you really don't have anything.
You have a stick. Yeah. So somebody drops in a key from above and you're able to escape, and the tutorial messages on the ground tell you how to swing your weapon. And you basically learn, like, okay, so I can attack with this against enemies that are effectively not fighting you. They're just like these shriveled guys just standing in the corner.
They're the undead who have fully gone hollow.
Exactly. There's the hollow inmates along with you, but you're the only one who kind of has hope to escape because someone just let you out.
Yep.
And you're trying to go through here. You're learning how to hit them. You're like, okay. You reach your first bonfire. You learn where the bonfire is. You sit at this thing. You stand back up, and there's a giant door in front of you.
Yep.
You start pushing the door. Start walking a few head in front of you. You see another giant door just across the way, and boom! Slam right in front of you. There is this enormous demon with this colossal hammer. It's like, all right, it's on.
Yep.
Figure it out. I hope you understand that R1 is light attack and R2 is heavy attack.
You roll up to him at first, and then as soon as you're like, okay, I'm about to do some damage, thwap.
This guy will almost assuredly destroy you. Like, immediately, if you don't figure out that you're supposed to run.
Yeah, because it's... Now, the thing that I will say, it's like, I do like this fight, but when I first played it, I didn't realize that the portcullis to the left of the asylum...
I didn't either.
Yeah, it was...
I fought him like 7 times. Yeah. I tried to kill... I got close, too. I almost killed him.
Oh, that's cool. You can do it. And that's the other... That I will say that is the beautiful thing. If you're skilled enough, you can actually just take him down with your broken sword.
Or you could just choose the fire bombs in the beginning and throw all of them at him and win.
Yep.
Because that does it, too. You could just leave. And I think I've seen some people skip the Estus Flask in the beginning of the game by doing that.
Why would you do that?
I don't know. Because they want the game to be harder, Zach.
Well, there was a dude out there who did a no-hit run for the entire Dark Souls trilogy, so...
Yeah, I've seen some crazy stuff. So anyway, you run to the left, and you escape this guy, and then you pick up a shield. More tutorials tell you how a shield works, and you have to run past an archer. A few other simple things like that, based on what the game was doing before. It kind of reverts to what it was doing, but a little less mean.
Yeah.
And that one is really just trying to get you to crap your pants. Like this game is about trying to kill you over and over again. And you need to figure out how to get away from it. So one, it already taught you, sometimes you don't just have to try and kill something you're stuck with.
Yeah.
You might not be stuck. So that you escape this guy, and eventually you work your way around, you meet another character, you get Estus Flasks, you go up to this taller precipice, and you get another message on the ground that says, while falling, press R1 and you can do a plunging attack. And you see what's on the other side of it is the Asylum Demon standing below you, and you have worked your way up. So now where you're at, even with that broken little sword, you do a plunging attack, and boom, half his HP is gone. And now it's on. Now you've had your full tutorial, you had this big chunk taken off of his HP, and now you just keep dodge rolling around this guy and learn how to poke, smack, and carve your way to victory to actually leave the asylum.
It's a very, very amazing teaching tool for this game, because it also teaches you, too, it's like, you know, you're going to die, and that's okay.
Yeah, just accept that you're going to die. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, we put that bonfire literally outside of this dude's arena.
You have infinite respawn, infinite lives. That's not the problem.
No.
And also, it's also teaching you that sometimes the best way to go about a problem is by investigating the area. and finding other things and learning. Because the most important thing that Dark Souls teaches you is that the experience of your life up till your last death was far more valuable than the souls you may have lost up to that point.
Correct.
Because psychologically you think, and by this point in the game, you don't even worry about souls at all. You can't even level up.
No.
So you get up to this point, you think like, oh, I lost like 6,000 souls by going really deep and learning where the Capra demon is, right? Mm-hmm. And then you go, well, now that I know where it is, now that I know what I have to fight, the knowledge is far more powerful. You can know where the ambushes are, you know the shortest path forward, you can take out enemies easier.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the thing that took me the longest time to get over was the fact that you would lose all your souls and all that. But once I figured out, okay, whatever, it's going to take way too many souls to level up after a while. Plus, if I'm desperate, I can grind.
It's a psychological trick. Yep. It's trying to get you to feel like it's hopeless. Because if you get to that point and you feel like something is hopeless, which is what the Asylum Demon is for.
Yep.
It's supposed to look like they just plop the final boss in front of you and you barely know how to move your weapon and it's like the size of a dagger.
Yep.
They want you to feel like it's hopeless because when you are given something that you as a person feels is hopeless, and then you find out you could do it, and you manage to do it anyway, nothing beats that.
Correct.
And I think the Asylum Demon is just the first one that like really sells that.
Absolutely. This next one I have is an evergreen favorite of mine, and one of yours too. Star Fox 64.
I love this game.
Oh my god, it is one of the best rail shooters I've ever played.
Absolutely.
So,
well, I wouldn't even fully call it a rail shooter because of a certain set of combat missions that we're about to talk about.
Yeah, so you can either play the game on rails, like the game you're kind of used to.
Some levels are in rails, yeah.
But then there's also the all attack?
All range.
All range mode.
It's basically dogfighting.
As you're playing the game and learning some of the routes and what you do, every so often in the story, no matter which route you go through...
Yeah, I think you're forced to deal with at least one of these.
And that thing is an encounter with a rival mercenary group, Star Wolf. And where you have Fox, Falco, Peppy, and Slippy, you've got Wolf, you've got Leon,
what's the pig?
Pigma, and Andrew.
Yep. Andrew the monkey.
Andrew the monkey, the nephew to Andros.
Andros' nephew. That's where it comes from. Yeah.
So...
It's still funny.
But the thing is, so while everything else that you've been kind of fighting up to this point in your R-Wing has been like simple enough enemies when you first fight them.
Yeah.
That just kind of
shoot the glowing weak spot, and you're flying towards it as it backs away from you.
These guys are R-Wing pilots, and they are good. And if you don't know what you're doing, or if you just kind of try to go into them like you're fighting a regular enemy, you will get smoked. Hard.
Yes. Some of the best boss fights I remember are ones in any game where the enemy equals you in power.
Yep.
So like think of the Dark Link fight in Ocarina of Time. Think of anything where you are fighting yourself. That's what the Star Wolf fight is.
Yeah, like Metroid Fusion.
Yeah, the SAS.
The SAS.
Well, the SAS is always more powerful than you, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Or the Doppelganger from Symphony of the Night. Those kind of enemies, yeah. So the thing is, like, they will lock onto specific enemies or to your specific crewmates because, you know, it's
certain ones like pair up.
Yeah, it's for lore reasons because, you know, these people don't like this particular person. And then
Wolf hates you the most.
Wolf hates you, and he will do his darndest to trail you and shoot you down.
Yeah, he's dirty.
He really is.
You gotta get him first.
But then when you figure out that you can do a loop-de-loop, and he doesn't expect it...
He can too, but yes.
Yeah. And he just goes, what the heck? And if you line up just right, you can start pelting him from behind and take out a good chunk of his health.
You'll have to learn to, like, turn harsh with, like, the triggers.
Yeah.
Because that'll also help you, like, swing around really fast, try and dodge these guys.
And, like, braking with the C buttons or speeding up to get away from people.
There's all sorts of tricks you can do.
Yeah, and you've got
the same controls that was a rail shooter.
Yes.
But it makes it so interesting.
Exactly.
In, like, 360.
And the thing, too, that I like is that it wants you to try to juggle the different enemies. However, you can take them out one at a time, and sometimes it's for the best. However, if your crewmates start taking too much damage, they take them out of the fight, it becomes like 4-on-3.
Yeah.
And then 2, and then...
And even worse, if you went into this fight, and in the last skirmish you did level-wise, you, like, lost Falco, you're now down a person, and you're still fighting all 4 Star Wolf.
Yeah, they don't care.
No.
And so it's just... It's always fun whenever they pop up, especially in the rematches that you can have with them. And, like, they, like... they get out, but they're not unscathed. So, like, Wolf has got, like, a cyber eye. Pigma, I think, is, like, lower jaw is, like, a robot jaw and stuff. It's amazing. It's like, you're just sore. So, yeah, I love those fights always whenever I play
great.
that game.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. So what about you? What's your next one?
My next one, you know, I'll just tell you now, I'm going to be on the Super Nintendo for the rest of mine.
That's fine.
I love the Super Nintendo. So, I'm actually going to talk about Yoshi's Island.
Good. That's a good one.
So, this is a happy-go-lucky game. Beautiful graphics. We've talked about it on this before in the HITBOX years. I love the look and the sound of this adorable, cute game. And you're fighting boss fights every 4 missions you go to. There's like a smaller palace and then like a bigger like dungeon that you have to go through. And each one of these that you fight is like some sort of normal enemy. And Kamek flies over, sprinkles some magic, and transforms it into a much larger, greater threat that you have to think about how to fight in a new way now that it's big.
Yep.
Also taking advantage of some crazy effects on the Super Nintendo that I don't know how they pulled off.
Because I think they added their own version of the Super Effects chip.
I think it was like an internal chip inside of the game.
Yep.
Yeah, it's whoa. So you fight through all of these, and the goal of the game is to reunite the babies Mario and Luigi. Yoshi's carrying Mario, and Luigi was kidnapped by Kamek, brought him to Baby Bowser. Ordered to do so because supposedly they had like some intuition that later in the future these two are going to cause problems for Bowser and his reign. Obviously, we know what they're talking about. Tee-hee. So you finally fight your way into the final palace in the game.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess spoilers for the ending of Yoshi's Island. Yeah, you're fighting through Bowser's castle. Yep. Baby Bowser's castle. You get into the boss room, and it is this kid's playroom.
Yep.
The ground is padded. It's very colorful. There's toys everywhere.
And when you see him, he's picking his nose.
Yeah, he's got this big, cute little nose. Baby Bowser's picking his nose. And he's like, oh,
Yoshi?
Me want to ride that.
Yeah.
My turn. And he jumps up and tries to do ground pounds on you and smash Yoshi.
And to get Baby Mario off your back.
Yes, and try and go. And he will ride on you instead, too.
I know. It's such a good little detail.
You have to actually get Baby Mario back to knock him off of your back. So he will, when he ground pounds the ground, I love this, he'll cause these shock waves. That will blast out of the ground and will wave all the way up to the ceiling sometimes. It's, whoa. So you finally fight through and you beat this guy. You beat Bowser Jr. Baby Bowser. Sorry, Bowser Jr. doesn't exist yet.
Not yet.
And you should have seen it coming. But Kamek flies in. He's like, no, you can't do this to my king. He sprinkles the magic on the defeated Baby Bowser. The screen goes black. There's 2 giant eyes. Everything's rumbling. The castle is destroyed. And then the best boss music in the entire Mario franchise.
I will agree with that.
I will die on this hill.
That's fine.
This is unbelievable. Do yourself a favor and listen to this track. It's amazing. So basically this would be phase 2 of the final boss of Yoshi's Island. You now are looking out of this like crumbling abyss now that the whole castle has been destroyed. It is night, it is dark. You can see way out in the distance by the horizon that there is this enormous Baby Bowser coming towards the screen. The whole game is a side-scrolling platformer. Now all of a sudden, Yoshi actually turns. He has new sprites looking into the distance. And you are running back and forth, trying to dodge him, almost like Space Harrier kind of thing.
A little bit, yeah.
And you have to grab giant eggs as they appear and try and aim into the background and chuck them and like expect for the drop too, for how far away he is. Because he will do a few moves to try and get to you. He will like obviously thunder closer and closer, which is intimidating as heck.
Oh my god, yes.
Especially when he gets really close.
And the scaling on him when he approaches like that is so good.
His whole head can get off screen. You don't realize how far away he is, and you're like, oh my god, this is enormous. Oh, and the fact that like he's lit from the sides or like the back.
Yeah, like
he's,
the moon
dark
is like
in the foreground.
Him.
Oh,
yes.
It's so creepy, and he'll also like fire fireballs at you, which are coming at the screen that you have to dodge. And then the best moves that he will do is he'll make rocks fall down from the foreground, which will destroy the ground that you are standing on. So now you're not only trying to shoot into the distance and grab new eggs, you have to watch where you're standing, because if you trip into those, you're dead.
Yep, and depending on RNG, he'll take out most of the platforms directly in front of him. So you have to like flutter jump between platforms and throw at the same time.
Yeah, there's only a few, like, if you really let him, like, go crazy and destroy everything, the game will only allow, like, just a tiny, tiny amount of little platforms far apart. And you'll have to hover, like, kick to even just try and get from one to the other and dodge, you know, fireballs that are still coming at you. But you finally, like, get the last one into his face and, like, you actually defeat it. It's so good, because as soon as you do, Yoshi then runs off to the right, and just on that little precipice on the end of the castle is where baby Luigi was waiting.
Yep, and he pokes his little head out finally.
It's so cute. The ending scene is so wonderful. This is one of the most memorable final bosses I've ever played.
I totally agree.
It's also like spinning everything you played up to that point with a new perspective.
Yeah, like it doesn't change the mechanics inherently, but how you interact with them.
Yeah, like I get kind of bothered, and like I think it was Kirby Return to Dreamland where the final boss, all of a sudden you're doing like this weird like 3D shooting thing. The typical ending of Kirby games, they will like do all sorts of weird stuff. Like the final boss of Kirby, the NES Kirby.
Yes.
You suddenly are doing like a side-scrolling shooter.
Yep.
Yeah, that kind of stuff happens in Kirby games, and like, it's cool, but I would much rather the mechanics of what I was doing not be taken away for a fight.
Right.
But do something new and interesting, and that is what this Baby Bowser fight is. It's so cool.
It really is.
It's so cool. It's probably my favorite Bowser fight they've ever done.
I get it.
Oof, what do you got?
Let's see, for my second to last one, we are in the home stretch, everyone.
You hope so.
I hope so. We are going to talk about one of my absolute favorite games of all time, Symphony of the Night.
Symphony of the Night.
Symphony of the Night.
I've still not gotten to review this thing. I was expecting to do it for Halloween, like I said, but hey, the people have spoken.
So for Symphony of the Night, so it is the game that really helped to solidify the Metroidvania. It put the Vania in that part. Borrowing from, as they say, The Legend of Zelda and the game design from like Super Metroid. And adding like the transformations and like the leveling mechanics and the equipment aspect to it, which, you know, is really cool and does add to the formula in a cool way. It is a really well made for a first attempt kind of game like this from Konami's Castlevania team.
Oh yeah.
And the bosses are like, the thing to note about Symphony of the Night, it came out in '97 on the PlayStation. This is around the time when the PlayStation did not want 2D games in the States coming out for some stupid reason. It was supposed to be 3D all the way. But it's like, it's all 2D, and it makes giant enemies, and they're like
it takes advantage of the CD to make it look great.
Like some of these things are like multi-segmented sprites. However, none of those really stand out the most to me. Well, not all of them.
They're great, but yeah.
The one that stands out to me the most, I should say, is one that I usually call the Nightmare Succubus. So when
in game, the succubus takes place in a nightmare.
Yes, exactly. You're down in the lowest reaches of the castle. You go to a save room. You're like, oh, thank God, I'm finally able to save.
But it's like pink or something.
Yeah, it's a different color, and you're like, that's not right. But it's like, but I've got to save. I'm not trekking all the way back. Yeah. So you use it. Then everything goes black, and you're in like a sepia-toned nightmare for Alucard, where he's watching as his mother is getting crucified for being a witch.
Yeah, there's of course more of their voice acted corny dialogue going back and forth, but it's actually, it's really sad.
It really is. And then eventually something happens where the mother is talking to him, and he's like, I miss you and I wish that you could be here. And then she says, kill humans.
You need to kill the, you know, like, it's fine, let me go, but you need to do this thing for me. Kill the humans.
Yeah, and then he goes,
my mother would never say that.
And then it's revealed that you're stuck in a nightmare, and then you find one of Dracula's generals, the succubus, who's trying to trap you in a nightmare realm forever. And so you get to fighting her, and her fight's actually really cool, because what I appreciate is that she's just barely out of your jumping range. So she's like stuck on the top of the screen going around. She's throwing tentacles at you. She's shooting a few things at you. So if you have the axe sub-weapon, she's a bit of a joke. You can just like keep axing her to death. Or if you use like different spells and stuff. The thing that I think that stands out to me the most is that it's the story aspect.
Yeah, thematically what happened. Like, the game, you have no reason to not trust a save room.
Exactly.
It's like, I don't know if you got to manage to get through my massive Chapter 4 of Super Metroid.
I'm working through it,
There is a save room that is a trap in the game. And I discussed it at length of how, like, genius that is. Trick a player into stumbling into some new thing where they're going to come out of it stronger. They're going to learn new things of it. They're inevitably going to love it. But you got to trick them and give them some other thing at the end of it. And I really like that thematically, story-wise, this is adding more, like, out of the backstory, understanding Alucard.
Yes.
But also, we see, like, what his mentality is for why he wants to do what he's doing, and you carry that for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Like, I believe the last line he tells the succubus, the only thing he tells her after realizing what was going on is, death is too good for you.
Yes.
And then the fight starts.
Yep. And so after that, like, she's like, please, I beg you for mercy. And then he's like, nah, I'm just going to leave you in this pocket dimension.
Yeah,
Have
where your
fun."
soul will wander forever aimlessly.
Yep. And then the fight's over, and then you can save.
God, that's
It is so cold.
That's so good.
And it's so good, yes. I don't care about the cheesy the voice acting. That moment still holds up for
It
me.
is.
Yeah.
It's so great, yeah.
What is
My last
yours?
one?
Yes.
My last one, as I mentioned, a Super Nintendo game.
Of course.
What Super Nintendo game do I like the most, more than any other? Well,
Pocky and Rocky.
Pocky and Rocky. Let's talk about Super Metroid.
Wait, that's not
sorry.
Pocky and Rocky.
No, it's not Pocky and Rocky.
Okay, that's fine.
That game's, I like that game too. But
I do too.
No, I'm talking about Super Metroid. So if there's any boss fight that you're probably going to leave this, like, scarred in your memory,
Yep.
it's the last one. Even though, once again, going back to the recent chapter I just did, if there's any other boss fight, it's probably Crocomire.
Yes.
Because what you do to that poor thing, that doesn't outright attack you.
No.
At all. Like,
he's just defending himself.
No, you can go in there and never shoot it, and it will never hurt you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
It only... Yeah, I didn't
Whoops.
notice until... Yeah.
Wow, am I the bad guy?
Yes. You push that poor thing into a vat of acid and watch it boil alive.
See, I thought it was just trying to fight me and defend itself or eat me.
No.
Wow, okay, never mind.
You attack it, and it starts pushing back to try and smash you into the spike wall.
Oh my god.
It's terrible. But, no, so the final fight with Mother Brain
Yes.
is a redo, initially. It's like a bait and switch kind of thing, where you're redoing what you initially did in the NES game.
Uh-huh.
So the nostalgia endorphins should be going nuts when you walk in this room and you see the Rinkas shooting and those meat tentacle glass containers that you gotta shoot with missiles to weasel your way through to finally get the Mother Brain. Break open the glass with missiles, shoot the thing, it flashes, boom, 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 you did it.
Uh-huh. Or
And
did
it
you?
crumbles to the ground. And then it slowly starts to stand up. As this spine emerges out of the back of it. It gets these gross, like, tyrannosaur arms coming out like cybernetic things grouping out of it.
The skin, like, being too tight on its legs and all that.
It's disgusting. It is one of the freakiest looking bosses I've ever seen in a Super Nintendo game.
And it opens its mouth.
Yes.
And it's got rows of teeth.
Like rows of teeth in the brain mouth.
In the brain mouth.
In the brain mouth. It's so sick.
And like a poison breath. Like it's purple when it breathes.
Yes.
It's so... Ugh.
Oh, God. It is the height of the entire screen.
Yeah, like it's not as big as Ridley, or not as big as Kraid.
Yeah, it's not as big as Kraid, but
that's not the point.
No. No, this room that you're in is not big. So when you blew up what you thought was Mother Brain, the room itself, like, it drains of the acid below, the walls behind you close in, and you're in a box the size of the screen. There's nowhere to run.
No.
You're trapped in here with this thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it is... Oh my god, it's gonna start chucking all sorts of projectiles at you.
Mm-hmm.
It's really gonna stay on its side of the screen, though. It will, like, walk around, and it does all sorts of big animations. For how big it is, I'm surprised it moves so much.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it does a lot. So eventually, the goal is to whittle down its HP, which is, like, as crazy as fighting Ridley again, who has ridiculous HP already. You finally whittle this thing down, and the goal of the fight, you realize you can't kill it. So if you know how to check, basically how much HP it has, it'll start using an attack that people call Red Ring.
Yes.
Where it'll just start shooting these red beams that'll just, like, thunder at you, and they do stupid damage. You do not want to be hit by these.
No.
Because, obviously, getting to this point, you already had to fight through a ton of actual Metroids. You had to fight through the Rinka danger room, actually defeat the Mother Brain itself. You thought the game was over, and now you're fighting the real final boss, and you're dealing with whatever is left. This game gave you way more energy tanks and missiles for a reason.
Yep.
And this is the reason. So luckily, though, this thing is positioned in a way that it is in the upper quadrant of the room, so you can basically hold R, and you're always firing and aiming at this thing, and it is just soaking up your missiles.
Yeah, it's not even, like, reacting like any of the
It doesn't
other
even
enemies.
flinch.
No.
It just gobbles them up.
It's not like Kraid where you shoot him in the face and he roars in pain.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, no. None of that.
No.
This thing is like, you are just firing as fast as you can, like, what is even happening?
And it just barely vibrates like it's an itch.
Like, you hear that it did damage.
Yes.
But that's it. And it's only taking damage in the head, which you already know it's going to because you just fought the brain.
It's just staring at you like, yeah?
And still shooting at you, unflinching, doesn't care. Every other boss, when you fight them, you kind of get an idea of their HP because they will slowly turn red. This thing doesn't really do that much.
No.
So you kind of feel like this is not going to work. You eventually if you got every single missile expansion in the game, you might have a couple left over, but you probably won't.
No.
So you fire everything you have into this, and now you're basically out.
Yeah.
And the thing starts rearing back.
And you
And
hear
it shuts its
noise.
eye. It's charging. It's flashing. And you try and avoid something that's about to come. And a single frame, boom, it aims right at you with this rainbow beam that instantly spams you to death.
With damage over...
Per frame.
Per frame,
You are flinching like crazy, and Samus falls down to the ground, can't get back up.
Yeah.
And even if you keep mashing the buttons, after the first one, you can actually get her back up again.
Yeah.
But after the second one, because it'll do it again...
Yeah, because it's like, nah, I'm done.
No, it will just continue to rainbow beam you to death. And it'll get you down to 1 HP.
And so what will happen is the sound of your low health meter goes off. And that whole whoop, whoop, whoop. And it charges back up one more time to deliver a finishing blow until from off screen, the baby Metroid you saved at the end of the second game, who you just encountered before, zooms in on screen and latches onto the mother brain.
This is a big story moment that really changes. Like, I mean, already mechanically what happened with the fake out thing and the real, like, horror we had to fight is enough of a cool boss fight.
Yes, it is.
But this narratively, I don't think Metroid can ever top this.
No,
So
not even with Dread, I don't think.
And I love Dread.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
This is like one of the greatest things I've ever seen in any game.
Yeah.
So the Metroid is like sucking the energy out of the mother brain.
And
while
it's
you
also
can't
absorbing
move.
the hyper beam that it's
It's
firing.
absorbing everything.
Yes.
And then it gets up, and previously in a story moment, it realized that you were the person who'd saved it from before. It tries to make up for that by giving energy.
Yeah.
Which is another gut-wrenching thing when you realize Metroids actually could have been used for good. They don't just take energy, they can give it.
Correct.
And it's filling you up all the way back up, and while it's doing it, you see the shriveled husk of Mother Brain start to breathe. The purple air puffs out, and it's still healing you, you're still going up.
Yep.
And eventually, the head cracks open, it roars at you, stands back up, and starts firing beams at the baby Metroid.
Yep, it starts firing its ring beams, it starts throwing its bombs at it and all that.
Oh, God. And
This
the thing
poor
it's just trying to take it and heal you.
Yep, and you watch as it goes from like a neon green to like a very dark, sickly green.
You can know that it's taking damage, clearly.
Yeah.
So it lets go of you to try and go back for the brain again, and one more hit, boom, obliterates the baby Metroid over your head. And
the music then kicks in.
ooh, then, yeah, full-on theme of Samus Aran kicks in, as now, with those particles that have covered you, grants you the hyper beam that the Mother Brain was just using. You turn that against it, and you murder that thing.
This thing is screaming, its head
Now it
reels
flinches.
back. Yes.
Every single shot, it's like, and you're just obliterating. Oh my God, it feels so good. It's such a power trip.
It really is.
Because you earn it at this point. This is another one of those boss fights. Like, you get to this point, like, all right, you won. But, like, you win. You blow this thing head.
It's another one of those emotionally charged endings.
And of course, you have a huge ending run after that point, which I'm not going to get into right now, because that's another fun aspect. But, like, destroying Mother Brain and Super Metroid, like, haven't had any other experience that has topped that kind of
I don't
level.
think so either.
It's everything coming together. The gameplay, the story, it just, like, it takes you for a ride.
Absolutely, it does.
But you got one more. We're gonna talk about.
Okay.
If we're gonna talk about our favorite games last, then Zach, what are we talking about?
We're talking about Dragon Quest.
We're gonna talk about some Dragon Quest.
Yeah. You knew it was coming.
If it wasn't Castlevania Symphony of the Night, then...
Yeah. Well, I already talked about that.
Yeah, exactly. Then which Dragon Quest are we talking about?
So it's still not my favorite game in the series, but it is Dragon Quest IV, specifically the Nintendo DS version of the game.
Okay.
The main... I'm going to put up spoilers for this one because I know we're going to be getting a Dragon Quest III HD remake, and I don't know what Square Enix plans to do if we're going to get more.
Just realized there's no spoiler skips on the podcast, so oops. Also, this is the last one, so if you have a spoiler skip for the ending, so you want to listen to me say the outro, then that's for you.
That's for you.
I'll say something special just for you.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, tutti frutti caputi. You've never heard me say it before, but there you go.
So, the main antagonist of Dragon Quest IV is, I think he's an elf, goes by the name of Sorrow the Manslayer. And he is the one who is able to control the monsters of the underworld to his bidding. And he is searching for a thing in this world called the Secret of Evolution. What he wants to do is that, as you learn, he's trying to protect an elf girl named Rose, who the humans of the world want to try to find because when she cries tears of diamonds. So greedy people are trying to get to her, and he's trying to save her. Eventually, it comes to find out that while he's out on an excursion trying to find the Secret of Evolution, she's found and killed. And so he finally loses his mind, and he full-on decides to take on the mantle of the Lord of the Underworld.
It's almost like he's, the best kind of villain where they're the hero of their own narrative.
Exactly, and he's rectified in his want to destroy humanity.
Yeah, who is the villain to him.
Exactly. So you as the party, of course, you can't let him destroy the world, because that's,
Yeah, you live there.
Yeah, you kind of live there. And it's not all humans' fault. It was just a greedy bunch of people that you deal with later that pay the price. So eventually he takes on the form of the Lord of the Underworld, who you kind of fight earlier in the game. And you think, oh, this is the Lord of the Underworld, just like every other Dragon Quest. I'm going to win already. But nope. He actually did hold the secret of the power of evolution. So Sorrow takes it and descends further into the Underworld. And so you finally start following him after figuring out ways to get down there. And so he's basically like this... He's a typical Akira Toriyama looking kind of design. He's got like... Well, the
Master
alien...
Roshi. Oh, the Piccolo.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that kind of...
Or Frieza. It's one of those.
I should have been specific. I'm sorry.
He doesn't draw that many faces.
No.
His women look like men, just with boobs.
Sometimes, yeah. But
Chrono. I mean, they all look the same. If I'm not just leaning on Dragon Ball.
Yeah. Anyway, so
yeah.
He's he's got like this weird head, and he's got like the two like segmented arms and legs. So you start fighting him, and you're doing a decent amount of damage to him, and you're like, wait a minute, why am I doing so much? But then he activates the power of evolution, and so 2 more arms start growing out of his sides.
Yeah.
Horns come out. And then eventually you fight him some more. And then a tail comes out. And then a mouth and a face appears in his chest.
Nice.
And so eventually...
I don't know what evolutionary lines require that,
well,
but...
what happens is it's almost like a form of magic in the fact that it speeds up the evolution process. And so it just adds more and more to him as his body is trying to
genetic mutations as fast as he can take it.
Exactly. And
that's really all that evolution is just genetic mutations.
Yeah.
Little mistakes.
That just
over time.
happen to work and just persists. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what he's trying to...
Darwin's cool.
Yeah. So that's what he's trying to harness. And so the further that you get in, the stronger he gets until eventually, like I said, he's got like 6 arms. He's got a sword in each arm and he does massive damage to you. And then you're like, oh God, this is it. I'm going to die. But as you keep doing damage, he starts wearing down. And this power of evolution starts catching up to him.
Oh,
so the more damage you do, he starts melting.
Oh, God.
And he'll still do massive damage, but he'll start taking more damage as well. Until eventually you deal the final blow, and this guy just falls to pieces.
Oh. Imagine the end of that story for that guy. As I mentioned before, like, he's the hero of his own narrative.
Yeah.
That's sad.
It really is. Like he
destroyed himself.
Yes, and that's the thing. Like, he's a very tragic figure in the fact that he did what he thought was right and rectified in doing, and he got what he wanted. The power to basically become greater than any living being in the world.
It ruined him, though.
Yes, exactly. And you want to know the funniest thing? This was on the NES.
Oh, yeah.
In 1989, 1990.
I was actually thinking when you were mentioning the transforming arms and stuff, like, envisioning what that looks like on the original hardware.
They made
Famicom.
They made new sprites for each phase.
Nice.
In the DS version, they're actually sprite animated transformations. So you watch as the arm makes itself segment by segment.
Nice.
Yeah. It's a really, really cool fight. And again, not my favorite Dragon Quest, but my God, do I love Sorrow.
Well, some fights will just stick with you.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's really what the whole point of this episode was.
And the main reason I also wanted to put up a spoiler tag, the new Dragon Quest Monsters game that's coming out in a couple days.
Yeah.
Yeah, you play as Sorrow in the world of Dragon Quest 4. So, you know.
Cool.
It's that's amazing, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it'd be awesome if you could actually, like, utilize that ability.
Yeah,
combat?
Yeah, because in the trailers it shows that why he controls monsters, because a curse was placed on him to where he could never fight monsters. If he tries to raise a sword against one of them, he can't fight them.
Uh-huh.
So he's able to recruit monsters to his cause to do damage for him.
Cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Anyway,
I'm looking forward to
cool
it.
games are coming out.
Yeah.
But anyway, this has been a long one. If you guys have any other boss fights that are just super memorable to you, let us know in the comments. But we've got to end this colossal episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of HITBOX. If you enjoy the show, you can help us keep it alive by supporting us on Patreon at the links in the show notes and this video's description. For those of you on YouTube, remember to like the video and subscribe for more. And be sure to let us know what you thought of the show and what other topics you'd like to hear us cover in the future. And special thanks to all of our Patreon members.
See ya.
Tutti frutti, patootie.
You said it.
I promised.
Thank you, sir.